At 68, I never imagined a Mother's Day photo would be the moment everything changed. But there I was in my own living room, surrounded by fake laughter and polished smiles, when my daughter-in-law Ashley leaned close and whispered in my ear, "Smile. You're going to a nursing home." The camera flashed before I could even react. My smile stayed perfectly in place. Years of family photos had trained me well, but inside something split open. Her words moved through me like ice, sharp and cold, stealing the air from my chest. Then she stepped back, still smiling sweetly, one arm around my shoulders like the loving daughter-in-law of the year. To everyone else we looked perfect. My son Kevin straightened his tie. Ashley glowed in her coral dress. And I stood between them like the proud mother I was expected to be. Only now I knew better. The rest of the afternoon passed like a bad dream. I served the meal I'd spent 2 days preparing. I nodded through conversations no one really included me in. Every time I looked at Ashley, she was already watching me with those sharp green eyes and that tiny smirk she thought no one noticed. Kevin barely spoke to me. That had become normal since he married her 3 years earlier. The son who used to call every day now treated me like an errand he kept postponing. When he did speak, it was to tell me to slow down, rest more, stop worrying so much. As if I were fading. While I stood at the sink clearing plates, I heard them talking in the living room. "She's getting more forgetful," Ashley said in that soft, concerned voice she used for an audience. "Yesterday she asked me 3 times what day it was." A lie. My memory was better than hers. I remembered every birthday, every anniversary, every insult she thought she'd hidden. Maybe that was the problem. "Maybe we should start looking at options," Kevin said. "She really shouldn't be alone in that big house." I gripped the counter so hard my hands hurt. That big house was my home. The place where Kevin took his first steps. The place Robert and I had built together room by room before his heart gave out too soon. Every wall held a memory, but to them it was just property. They kept talking. They had been discussing this for months. Ashley had already researched facilities. They were worried about the burden I was becoming, about how my declining health was affecting their lives. Declining health. I played tennis twice a week. I volunteered at the library. I drove myself everywhere and balanced my own accounts. But in Ashley's version of reality, I was halfway gone already. After they left, I sat alone at the table staring at the Mother's Day card Kevin had handed me. "To the best mom in the world. Thank you for everything you've given us." I almost laughed. That night I walked through my house slowly, seeing it clearly for the first time in years. The polished hardwood floors I'd cared for myself. The flower beds outside I still planted every spring. The framed family photos from happier days, when Kevin looked at me with love instead of obligation. The guest room I once imagined grandchildren would fill now sat untouched, because Ashley had made it clear children were never part of her plans. Somewhere along the way, I had become invisible in my own life. But Ashley had made one serious mistake. She underestimated me. She saw an old woman she could pressure, confuse, and remove. She did not see the widow who rebuilt her life after losing her husband. The mother who worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over Kevin's head. The woman who had survived grief, debt, loneliness, and disappointment without asking anyone to save her. Lying awake that night, staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. If they wanted to play games with my future, I would show them exactly who they were dealing with. But first, I needed to know how deep the betrayal went. The next morning, I woke with a calm I hadn't felt in years. No more excuses for Kevin. No more pretending marriage had simply changed him. No more hoping Ashley would one day soften. I needed the truth. Years ago, Kevin had given me a key to their house. "In case of emergencies, Mom." Well, this felt like one. I waited until I saw both of them leave for work. Then I drove 10 minutes to their spotless suburban home. My hands shook as I unlocked the front door. Not because I feared being caught, because I feared what I was about to learn. Inside, the house looked exactly like Ashley herself. White, expensive, perfect, and utterly cold. There were no family photos anywhere. No vacation pictures. No childhood memories. No signs that love had ever lived there. The few framed photos of Kevin looked like corporate headshots, stiff and polished, as if even his own home had been staged. I started in his office. On the desk were brochures for assisted living facilities. My chest tightened before I even opened them. Ashley's neat handwriting was scribbled across the covers. Too expensive. No private rooms. And on one brochure, she had circled the monthly rate and written, "Perfect. Basic care only. Basic care only." As if I were already half gone and only needed somewhere cheap to wait for death. Then I found the papers underneath. Legal documents. Property transfer forms. Guardianship information. Estate planning for elderly family members. Notes from an attorney about asset control. They hadn't just talked about removing me. They were preparing to take everything I owned. My hands shook as I photographed every page with my phone. Each picture felt like burying what little trust one still had left in my son. I went upstairs to their bedroom. Inside Ashley's nightstand was a notebook. That woman had turned my life into math. My monthly expenses. The estimated value of my duplex. Insurance notes. Savings projections. Even a handwritten estimate of how many years I might have left based on average female life expectancy and her health conditions. I had no health conditions. Unless surviving snakes counted. Then I turned the page. She had made a timeline. Phase 1. Establish decline concerns. Phase 2. Discuss safety issues with Kevin. Phase 3. Present nursing home as only option. Phase 4. Sell property and liquidate assets. I read it twice. She had been planning this for over a year. I sat on their white designer couch, holding that notebook, and felt something stronger than sadness. Stronger than heartbreak. Rage. Clean, focused rage. They thought I was a confused old woman who would quietly accept whatever they arranged. They thought I would thank them while they boxed up my life. They had no idea who they were dealing with. By the time I drove home, my plan had already begun. I thought about Maria. My part-time caregiver came 3 days a week to help with errands and cleaning. But Maria did something far more valuable. She listened. She brought homemade lumpia wrapped in foil. She laughed with me. She asked how I was feeling and waited for the answer. She treated me like a person, not a problem. That afternoon, when she arrived for her usual visit, I was ready. "Maria," I said, "can I ask you something personal?" She stopped dusting immediately and looked at me with concern. "Of course, Ms. Linda. Are you happy working for me? I mean truly happy. Not polite happy." She blinked, surprised. Then set the cloth down and sat across from me. "You are one of the kindest people I work for," she said. "You treat me like family, not like help. Why would you ask that?" I held her gaze. "What if I told you I may not be living here much longer?" Her whole face changed. "Are you sick? Are you moving? My son thinks I belong in a nursing home." Maria's expression hardened in a way I had never seen before. "That boy does not know what he has," she said sharply. "You are strong. You are smart. You care for yourself better than people half your age. Why would he put you away? Because his wife thinks I'm a burden." Maria made a disgusted sound. "That woman has ice in her veins. I see the way she looks at you." Hearing someone else say it out loud steadied me. I wasn't imagining any of it. "Maria," I said quietly, "can I trust you with something important?" She answered without hesitation. "Yes. I'm going to need help with something. Something that may change both our lives." Her eyes widened, but she never pulled back. "Whatever you need, Ms. Linda." That night I began building my revenge. Not emotional revenge. Not reckless revenge. Precise revenge. Kevin and Ashley believed they were handling a helpless old woman. Soon they would learn they had declared war on the wrong one. Over the next several days, I asked Maria about her life while she worked and I pretended to read. What she told me humbled me. She had once been a registered nurse in the Philippines, working in a busy hospital in Manila. After her husband died in a motorcycle accident, she was left alone with 3 children and no safety net. So she came to America. Not to chase dreams. To feed hers. "I clean houses now," she told me while folding laundry with careful hands. "It is honest work. But it is not what I trained for." Every month she sent most of her money home so her children could stay in school. "My oldest, Jessica, wants to be a doctor. My son David loves computers. Little Emily is only 12, but she is so smart." I looked at this woman who had lost so much and still carried herself with grace. "Do you miss them?" I asked softly. I asked though I already knew the answer. The way Maria's voice softened whenever she mentioned her children told me everything. Every day, she said quietly. I haven't seen them in 3 years. I thought once I got settled here, I'd bring them over. But everything costs more than I imagined. She paused, folding one of my sweaters with careful hands. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice leaving them with my sister. You made the choice mothers make, I told her. You sacrificed so they could have a future. That night, after she left, I sat at my kitchen table with tea gone cold beside me and a legal pad in front of me. I wrote out the bones of a plan so bold it would have frightened me a month earlier. Now it felt exactly right. The next morning I called my attorney Michael Peterson. Michael had helped me through Robert's estate when he died and handled my affairs for years after. More importantly, he was one of the few men left who still spoke to me as if age had not erased my intelligence. Linda, he said warmly when I entered his office, what can I do for you today? I need to change my will, I said, taking the chair across from him. And I want to transfer my property. His eyebrows lifted. That's a serious move. What brought this on? So I told him everything. Ashley's whisper, the brochures, the legal papers, the notebook, the plan to paint me incompetent, lock me away and strip my life for profit. With every word, Michael's face darkened. When I finished, he leaned back slowly. Linda, I'm sorry. I've known Kevin since he was a child. I never imagined this. Neither did I said. But now I need to protect myself. And I want to do something meaningful with what I still have. What did you have in mind? I want to deed my duplex to Maria Santos. He blinked. Now? While you're alive? Yes. That is a substantial gift. Are you certain? More certain than I've been in years. I slid a folder across the desk. I had done my homework. Maria was a legal resident. She had steady work history, excellent references, no debts worth mentioning, and more integrity than half the people in town. She deserves a real chance, I said. And I want to be the one who gives it to her. And Kevin. I met his eyes without flinching. My son sees me as a burden and my home as his future payday. I would rather give it to someone who values both shelter and sacrifice. Michael sat in silence for a long moment. This will devastate him when he learns it. Good, I said. And I meant every syllable. Maybe pain is the only lesson he has left. For the next hour we discussed every legal detail. Michael recommended immediate transfer through deed, plus additional protections in case Kevin later tried to challenge my mental fitness. We need records, he said. Medical evaluation. Cognitive testing if necessary. Proof this decision was made freely and clearly. Schedule everything. When I walked out of that office, I felt lighter than I had since Robert died. For the first time in years I wasn't reacting. I was acting. That afternoon Maria arrived for cleaning, humming softly as she carried in supplies. Maria, I said. Sit with me. I need to ask you something important. She sat at once, worry in her eyes. Is everything all right, Ms. Linda? If you could bring your children to America tomorrow, would you? Her face transformed, like sunrise breaking through clouds. Of course, she said. But that can never happen. I could never afford sponsorship. And even if I could, where would we live? I rent one small room. There's no place for children. What if there were? She gave me a sad smile. Miracles do not happen to people like me. I reached across and took her hands. They were rough from years of labor. Maria, I want to give you my duplex. She froze. I'm sorry, what? I want to transfer the house to you. Both units. You could live in one side and rent the other. Or bring your children and have room for all of you. You could build the life you crossed an ocean to create. She stared at me as if I had spoken another language. Ms. Linda, you cannot be serious. I have never been more serious. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But your son. Your family. My son has made himself clear, I said gently. He plans to put me in a nursing home and sell this place anyway. I would rather give it to someone who will love it. She began crying openly. I cannot accept something so big. Yes, you can. I squeezed her hands. You have given me dignity these last 2 years. You listened when others dismissed me. You treated me like I still mattered. You brought kindness into a house that had grown quiet. I looked around the room Robert and I had built. This home deserves laughter again. She shook her head, overwhelmed. Your son will hate me. For the first time in years my smile came naturally. Then let Kevin hate the right person for once. The next few weeks became a careful performance. While Michael finalized the transfer, I had to let Kevin and Ashley believe they were still in control. Kevin and Ashley kept pushing the story that I was no longer capable, and I let them believe it was working. Mom, you left the stove on again yesterday, Kevin said during one of his suddenly frequent visits. A complete lie. I had been at tennis all afternoon. Still, I lowered my eyes and gave a worried little nod. Oh dear. Have I? I've been so scattered lately. Ashley glanced at him with satisfaction. These things happen, Linda, she said in that syrupy voice I had come to despise. Nothing to be embarrassed about. It's just part of aging. I nearly laughed. Instead, I folded my hands and looked confused. We've been thinking, Kevin said, settling onto my couch like a man measuring furniture he expected to inherit. Maybe you need someone around more often. For safety. What do you mean? Well, Maria only comes 3 times a week. What if something happens when she isn't here? Ashley leaned forward, concern painted neatly across her face. We've looked into some wonderful places for you. Communities where people can help 24 hours a day. Activities, meals, medical care. Places. I asked softly, you mean a nursing home? Not a nursing home, Kevin said too quickly. More like assisted living. I knew exactly which place he meant. I had seen the brochure. Sunset Manor. A warehouse for forgotten people. I don't know, I murmured. This is my home. Robert and I built our life here. Dad's been gone 7 years, Mom, Kevin said, using that patronizing tone reserved for children and the elderly. Isn't it time for a new chapter? A new chapter. As if he were the author of my ending. Maybe just visit, Ashley said sweetly. No pressure. I pretended to think it over. I suppose that couldn't hurt. The relief on their faces was almost funny. They thought they had one. They had no idea they were walking into my ending, not theirs. That same afternoon Maria arrived. The signed, notarized transfer papers sat on my kitchen table, ready and final. She stared at them as if they might vanish. Ms. Linda, are you absolutely sure? Maria, I said, sliding the deed toward her. I have never been more sure of anything. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. This is yours now. She burst into tears. You can bring your children, I told her. You can build the life you crossed the world for. I don't know how to thank you. You already did, I said. You treated me like I mattered. We spent the afternoon making plans. She would give notice at her other jobs. Begin immigration paperwork. Prepare rooms. The rental income from the second side of the duplex would support her family, while she renewed her nursing credentials. Then Maria looked around the room that would soon be hers and said something that nearly broke me. I want to take care of you. You do not need any facility. I am a nurse. You can stay here with me. I will keep you safe. The irony was exquisite. My own son wanted to dump me in the cheapest room he could find. A stranger wanted to give me a home. We'll see what happens, I told her. First, let's get through the weekend. Friday evening, Kevin called. They have an opening for a tour tomorrow morning, he said. Ashley and I will pick you up at 10. That sounds fine, I replied, adding just enough sadness to satisfy him. After we hung up, I called Michael. The deed is recorded, he said. Maria Santos is now the legal owner of the property. It's done. And irreversible? Without her consent, yes. I smiled. She won't give it. Michael paused. Are you ready for Kevin's reaction? I thought about years of excuses. Years of swallowing disrespect because I was afraid to lose my son. Then I answered honestly. I lost my son a long time ago. I just refused to admit it. Saturday morning arrived gray and wet. Perfect weather for visiting a place built to drain the spirit. Kevin and Ashley arrived right on time, both of them unusually cheerful. You're going to love it, Mom, Kevin said as he drove. They have bingo, movie nights, all kinds of activities. Sunset Manor looked exactly as I expected. A squat brick building surrounded by cracked pavement, and a few dying shrubs pretending to be landscaping. Inside, the lobby smelled of bleach and surrender. Our guide was a young woman named Lauren who spoke in the bright, fake tone people use with toddlers and the senile. She showed us the dining room, where residents sat silently over lukewarm trays. The recreation room, where wheelchairs faced a blaring television while half the audience slept. Then she opened the door to a standard suite. It was barely larger than a closet. One narrow bed. One dresser. One hard chair. A tiny window facing the parking lot. This was where my son planned for me to disappear. The monthly fee includes meals, laundry, activities, and basic medical care. Lauren chirped. It's really quite a bargain, Lauren said brightly. A bargain. So that was my value now. Discounted. What do you think, Mom? Kevin asked, slipping an arm around my shoulders. To anyone watching, it looked loving. To me, it felt like a hand closing around a throat. I looked around the tiny sterile room and smiled pleasantly. It's very nice, I said. When could I move in? The relief on their faces was almost offensive. They had expected resistance. Tears. Arguments. Complications. Instead, I gave them peace. 'Cause Monday was coming. And Monday would be expensive. That morning dawned bright and clear, sunlight pouring through the windows like applause. I woke early, made myself eggs and toast, and dressed in my best navy suit, the one I had worn to Robert's funeral and other days that changed my life. Today qualified. At exactly 8 o'clock, I called Kevin. Mom, he answered surprised. Everything okay? I need you and Ashley to come over this morning, I said calmly. There's something important we need to discuss about my living situation. I could hear him straighten up through the phone. Of course. We'll be right there. They arrived in under 30 minutes. Both eager. Both smug. Ashley carried a manila folder tucked under one arm. No doubt forms for Sunset Manor, signatures she expected to collect, maybe even power of attorney paperwork. Come sit down, I said. I took my usual chair, the one Robert used to joke I had claimed before the moving boxes were unpacked. Kevin and Ashley sat on the couch, leaning forward like children waiting for presents. I've been thinking about Friday, I began. And about my future. We're so glad you're being reasonable, Mom, Kevin said warmly. Interesting how tender his voice became when money was near. Yes, Ashley added, opening the folder. We brought some preliminary paperwork. Nothing major. Just to get things started. I nodded. Before we discuss paperwork, I should tell you the decision I've made. Kevin smiled. Of course. What is it? I let the silence stretch one extra beat. I've decided to deed my duplex to Maria. The room went still. Even the grandfather clock in the hallway suddenly sounded louder. Ashley blinked first. I'm sorry, she said tightly. Could you repeat that? I gave my house to Maria Santos. Both sides of the duplex. The transfer was filed Friday. Kevin went pale. Mom. That's not funny. I'm not joking. I reached into my purse, removed a copy of the recorded deed, and placed it on the coffee table between them. Maria is now the legal owner. Ashley grabbed the papers and scanned them wildly. This can't be valid. She isn't even a citizen. She is a permanent resident, I said. Which is entirely legal. Michael Peterson handled everything. Kevin stared at the pages like they might burst into flames. You can't do this. This house was supposed to be. We had plans. Yes, I said softly. I know all about your plans. Their eyes snapped to me. I know about Sunset Manor. I know about the brochures. I know about the notebook, Ashley. The color drained from her face. How did you? You left me a key to your house, remember, Kevin? I folded my hands. I used it. Neither of them moved. I saw the note that said basic care only. I saw the timeline for establishing my decline. I saw the life expectancy calculations. I saw the paperwork about taking control of my assets. Kevin looked sick. Mom, you don't understand. We were trying to plan ahead. Make sure you were taken care of. I laughed. A real laugh this time. Taken care of? You were planning to lock me in the cheapest room you could find and sell my home. That isn't care. I leaned forward. That is disposal. That's not true, Ashley said, but her voice had no strength left in it. Then explain the brochure. She said nothing. Explain the calculations. Silence. Explain why my life became a business strategy in your bedside drawer. Neither one could look at me. You know what hurts most? I said. If you had come to me honestly, if you'd said you were struggling financially, I would have helped you. Kevin's jaw tightened. I always helped you. My voice sharpened. But instead of asking, you chose deception. You spread rumors about my mind. You treated me like furniture to be moved out of the way. We never said incompetent, Kevin muttered. No, I said. You only built the case for it. Ashley reread the deed, growing redder with every line. You gave away property worth nearly $500,000 to some cleaning lady. This is insane. My eyes turned to ice. Maria is not some cleaning lady. Each word landed hard. She is a registered nurse. She has worked 3 jobs to support her children. She has shown me more dignity in 2 years than either of you have shown me in 5. Ashley slammed the papers down. We'll contest this. We'll have you declared mentally incompetent. No judge will believe a sane woman gives away her inheritance to a stranger. I smiled slowly. Go ahead. Then I delivered the part Michael had insisted on. I completed full medical and psychological evaluations before signing anything. I held her gaze. 3 separate doctors declared me completely sound of mind. Good luck explaining to a judge, I said calmly, why a woman competent enough to live alone, drive herself, play tennis twice a week, and manage her finances is somehow too incompetent to decide where her own property goes. Kevin dropped his face into his hands. Mom, please. We can fix this. Maybe Maria would sell the house back. I stared at him. Why would she do that? So you can ship me to Sunset Manor and keep the money. He had no answer. Then where are you going to live? Ashley snapped. Maria has offered me the larger bedroom, I said. She wants to care for me here. In the home I love. I let that settle over them. Imagine that. Someone wants to care for me instead of getting rid of me. The defeat on their faces was almost satisfying. Almost. Mostly, it made me mourn what we could have been if they had chosen love over greed. You've destroyed everything, Ashley whispered. No, I said, my voice steady. You destroyed everything the moment you decided I was worth more as money than as family. I rose from my chair. You just never expected me to fight back. After they left, Ashley clutching her useless folder, Kevin looking 10 years older, I sat alone in my living room, and for the first time in years I felt peace. Not the empty silence I had grown used to, the kind that comes after justice, the kind that comes when you finally stop letting people walk over your heart. That afternoon, Maria arrived for her first day not as help, but as homeowner. She found me in the garden trimming the roses Robert had planted for our 20th anniversary. Ms. Linda, she said softly. The neighbors saw Kevin and Ashley leaving. They looked very upset. I glanced up and noticed something different in her posture. She stood taller now. Ownership had already changed the way she carried herself. They learned about the house, I said. How did they take it? I laughed, surprising myself. About as well as you'd expect. Ashley threatened to have me declared incompetent. Kevin looked ready to cry. Maria bent to clip spent blooms. Do you think they will fight it? They may try. They won't win. Michael made sure of that. I brushed dirt from my hands. And what would they tell a judge? That I'm too unstable to make decisions, but stable enough to live alone unsupervised. She smiled. They must be very angry. I'm sure they are. Then I looked at her. But anger is all they have left now. Over the next few weeks I learned just how badly they had lost. Kevin called several times, switching between guilt and threats. Ashley sent messages that became more frantic each day. The truth had surfaced. They had been counting on my house to support a lifestyle they could not actually afford. But the most satisfying transformation was Maria's. The woman who once apologized for taking up space now moved through life like someone who belonged in it. 2 months later, her children's visas were approved. I stood beside her when they arrived. Jessica was 18, tall and serious, already talking about medical school. David was 16, quiet and bright, fascinated by computers and engineering. And little Emily was 12 with Maria's eyes and enough joy to light a room. Lola Linda? Emily asked shyly, using the Filipino word for grandmother. Yes, sweetheart. Mama says you gave us this house. Is that true? We were sitting in the breakfast nook overlooking the garden while the others explored every room like it was a palace. It's true. She frowned thoughtfully. But why? We're not your real family. I looked at this child who had endured 3 years without her mother. At Maria, now studying to renew her nursing credentials. At Jessica and David discussing futures they could finally believe in. Then I answered. Family is not only blood. I reached for her hand. Family is who shows up, who protects you, who treats you with kindness, who makes room for you in their heart. I smiled. By that definition, you're more family than some people who share my name. Emily considered that with great seriousness. Then she brightened. Can I call you Lola for real? My throat tightened. It would be an honor. 6 months later, I sat in that same breakfast nook when I saw Kevin drive slowly past the house again. He had done it several times. As if he still couldn't accept what he had lost. The house was alive now. Children laughing in the yard. Maria calling them in for dinner. Warm lights glowing in windows that had been dark too long. For one brief moment I felt sadness. Then it passed. Kevin had made his choice. So had I. Maria stepped in carrying jasmine tea and set a cup beside me. The children want to cook dinner for you tonight, she said, taking the chair across from me. David found a recipe for your favorite pot roast online. And Emily says she can make better biscuits than the bakery. They don't need to do that. They want to, Maria said softly. They love you, Ms. Linda. She smiled. We all do. I sipped my tea and looked through the open doorway into the kitchen. Jessica was helping Emily measure flour while David read instructions from his phone like a surgeon preparing for an operation. Emily stood on a step stool, apron covered in flour, fiercely guarding her biscuits. The room was loud, messy, warm, and alive. My heart felt fuller than it had in years. Maria, I said quietly, do you ever regret it? Leaving the Philippines, working so hard, giving up so much. She thought for a moment before answering. I used to wonder on the hardest days, she said. But when I look at my children now, when I see their opportunities, their safety, their future, no. She glanced toward the kitchen and smiled. Some sacrifices are worth making. I understood exactly what she meant. That night we sat around the dining table together like a real family. Candles flickered. Laughter echoed through the room. Plates passed from hand to hand. Emily's biscuits were somehow better than the bakery's. David had made pot roast that tasted so much like Robert's favorite recipe that I had to blink back tears. Jessica beamed as she told us she'd been accepted into the local community college pre-med program. I looked around the table and realized something simple and profound. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Not calculation. Not resentment. Not people measuring your worth by what they could take. This was warmth. This was joy. This was being wanted. Later that evening Maria walked me upstairs. Not because I needed help. Because it had become our ritual. Those few quiet minutes at the end of each day. At the top of the stairs she stopped. Ms. Linda, I need to tell you something. What is it? I've been saving part of the rental income. I want to start a college fund for you. I stared at her. A college fund, for me? You always talk about wanting to learn photography properly, she said. Maybe art classes too. She touched my hand. You should do those things while you can still enjoy them. At 68 years old, after decades of caring for everyone else, someone was telling me my future still mattered. Someone was investing in my dreams. I began to cry. Not from pain. From gratitude. From the deep peace that comes when you know you made the hardest choice and the right one. Thank you, I whispered. Maria knew I meant far more than the classes. That night, I settled into bed and listened to the sounds downstairs. Dishes clinking. Children laughing. Water running. Maria humming softly as she prepared for her nursing shift. The sounds of home. Kevin and Ashley had tried to write me out of my own story. Instead, they forced me to write a better ending. One where I wasn't surviving. I was living. One where I was surrounded by people who saw me as a blessing, not a burden. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you inherit. And if you were in my place, what would you have done? Leave your thoughts below. And on the final screen there are 2 more stories you might enjoy. Thank you for watching until the end.